All of you for participating this evening and coming out to this planning town hall. And very, very excited to be a part of this. This is our general plan update, and we'll get into more details about what that means. But it has always struck me that probably right after your franchise to vote, having an opportunity to talk about your community and your neighborhood and your destiny is one of the greatest franchises you have as part of the community. So it's very important for us to be able to be here. We're very glad, given everything going on with the pandemic, that we can be here physically and actually have some time to exchange over maps and with each other. And it was really an opportunity for us to learn, certainly us in the city, to learn from you, this is your community, your neighborhood, and your aspirations, but also all of us learn from each other. So very excited to be here. This is really at the front end of what's going to be a much longer journey. But really, really excited to hear what you will have to tell us and for us to see how we all can work together to make the best we can for West Oakland to be free. And I want to say a little bit of prejudicial statement here that I come out of New Orleans here, and the first week I arrived, I went to the library and museum, African American Library and Museum, and the first thing that I saw was Evolutionary Blues, which talks about the history of music really anchored here in West Oakland, in a D3, but it opened up with a vision of Storyville in New Orleans, and I knew immediately that I had not gone too far from home. So it is a great, great opportunity to be here. So much history, so much opportunity here to address. And I'm going to turn this over now to our Deputy Director, Ed Manasseh, who is much an institution in this city, just given for everything he has accomplished and how well he knows his place and how well he masters his craft. So at that, sir,
well, thank you so much, Bill. Yeah, I'm just going to give you a quick overview of the agenda and then introduce the council member who will also be giving some opening remarks. So, as Lakshmi mentioned, we're doing this is our second in-person open house. We've been doing a lot of online things, as everyone's gotten used to, but we're happy to meet everyone in person once again. It's been a long time. Tonight we're going to give you an overview of the general plan update, which is happening in 2 phases. We'll go more into that in a moment. There's a great mapping exercise we'll be doing after a Q&A session that will happen after the opening presentation. So that's the evening's agenda, and I'm going to go ahead and introduce the council member to give also opening remarks. So, Councilor Fife.
So first of all, thank you to the residents of this district who came out to be a part of this process. We are also streaming live so that people can participate and know what's happening through all of our social media pages. But I also wanted to say that this is a once-in-a-generation opportunity for the residents of our city to get engaged in the design process for what they want to see in the city of Oakland. So I'm excited about all the materials that the city has brought out for us to really get into what that design can look like. And please stay in contact with my office as this project moves forward and with our planning department. What they're doing right now is a heavy lift. And as Director Gilchrist said, this is a franchise opportunity for people to really let their voices be heard. So I'm happy that you all are out here today to help us with this process. The second in-person event. Yeah. So we're going to have some fun this evening. And yeah, I just look forward to building with you all. Thank you for coming.
Right, thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Fife. Again, thank you everybody for taking the time to be here. Once again, my name is Lakshmi Rajagopalan. I'm a planner of the Strategic Planning Division. With me, I have staff from the city and from our consultant team, Diana Perez-Domensek, Alicia Parker, Khalila Hayes.
there she is.
Khalila.
She'll be right on cue.
Chris Norman, and Allison, and Julie from our consultant team, Diane Badia. So, like Deputy Director Ed Manasseh mentioned, this general plan update is part of this document. So we will give a quick overview of what the general plan is and how this project is phased, and when has it begun, and when will be, and what topics are we going to be covering as part of this general plan update. So the general plan is the guiding document for the city, and it provides direction for future development and also an opportunity to engage our community. So the last time the general plan was updated was 20 years ago. Several elements were only updated 20 years ago. And the state of California requires cities and counties to adopt and update their general plan. And like Councilmember Fife mentioned, this update is actually a once in a generation opportunity for us to provide our input. Because the last time it was updated, I think I was maybe 18 or 19 years old, still in college. So we welcome your input and feedback. So what does the general plan affect? It pretty much affects every part of our life. It looks at housing, where and how housing is located. Is it located equitably? How are parks located? What are the numbers? How much square feet is needed? It also looks at transportation. How do people get around? In terms of how do people get around? Bicyclists, children, people with disabilities, pedestrians, and seniors. And finally, it also impacts who's able to thrive and stay in this economy. So we are at the beginning of an approximately 5-year process, and the state requires the cities, the general plan to have specific topic areas, also known as elements. So anytime you hear a word element, what we are talking about is a specific topic area. So as part of phase 1, we will be updating the housing element, the safety element, the environmental justice element, which is a new requirement, and we will also be looking at developing an industrial lands policy. The draft housing element has just been published for public review, and we have an upcoming meeting, virtual meeting on June 9th to get feedback on the draft housing element. Phase 2 of the general plan includes updates to the open space, conservation and recreation element, the noise element, the land use and transportation, and the infrastructure and facilities element. And phase 2 is expected to go until July 2025. A key part of this project is community engagement, and we are working with a community partner including 13 community-based organizations who focus on Oakland's most impacted communities. These include working class communities, communities of color, unhoused populations, people with disabilities, older adults, formerly incarcerated communities, youth, and communities experiencing environmental injustices. And the way we are doing outreach is through several pop-up and community hub events. So we were at Malcolm X Jazz Festival over the weekend. We also were at the Black Joy Parade, and there are also pop-ups throughout the neighborhoods. And we have also had several neighborhood workshops and town halls such as these, and specific discussion groups focusing on key topic areas, and decision-maker meetings such as presentations to the Planning Commission, the City Council, or the CED Committee. Now I would like to turn it over to Diana to talk about our current work on the environmental justice element.
Okay. So as you know, SB 1000, that's the Planning for Healthy Communities Act, requires any city or county in California with disadvantaged communities to plan for a standalone environmental justice element, or to integrate environmental justice policies and goals into all the other elements of the general plan. And the state law mandates that the EJ, the environmental justice element, focus on specific topic areas, such as promoting physical activity, promoting safe and sanitary homes, food access, reducing exposure to pollution, including improving air quality, promoting public facilities such as schools, libraries, parks, childcare centers, and as well as prioritizing, including policies and goals that prioritize the needs of environmental disadvantaged communities, and and as well as policies and goals around civic engagement and really promoting the participation of environmental justice communities in public decision-making processes. So state law uses the term disadvantaged community, but the City of Oakland has opted to use the term environmental justice community in recognition that environmental justice is both about identifying problems in areas that are unfairly impacted, so disadvantaged, but it's not only about identifying problems, but it's also about creating access to environmental resources and benefits and investments. And the city, as I mentioned, the city has opted to pursue both an environmental justice element, so the general plan will have a standalone EJ element, and also integrate EJ into the policies and goals of all other elements. So really the first step in the environmental justice planning process is to identify environmental justice communities. And this will be a cyclical process that's really, that will be refined through conversations with communities. We, as part of the baseline conditions, as part of our study of existing conditions in the city, we did a screening analysis, which resulted in a draft map of potential environmental justice communities that we will present to you today. And using this analysis, we can begin to understand which indicators or topics are most impacting Oakland. And so for each indicator or issue, we highlighted the top 25 most burdened neighborhoods. So this will help us develop or target policies to specific areas based on the issues that are impacting those communities the most. So as I mentioned, so in order to start identifying EJ communities, we prepared a customized analysis. So we started with data from Talent Virus Screen on environmental pollution burdens. And then we added, based on state requirements, we added 2 definitions of low-income areas. And then to understand what are the issues that are impacting communities the most, we added indicators on every topic area that is required by state law. So around topics of increasing access to parks, promoting physical activity, healthy food access, and safe and sanitary homes. And then we also added indicators. We rounded up an analysis by adding local indicators based on recommendations from the Equitable Climate Action Plan, the Department of Race and Equity, and the thank you. And also recommendations from our deeply rooted partners. That's our community consultant. So the screening analysis is made up of 4 categories, 12 topic areas, and 51 indicators. And this structure really builds off of the work that the Department of Transportation did with their Geographic Equity Toolbox, as well as the work that the Department of Race and Equity has done to identify equity indicators for the whole city. So the 4 topic areas are race and poverty, pollution burden, sensitive populations, and the built environment. And then under that, we have topics that we consider to be important in identifying disparities across these areas. And so there are 51 different indicators that make up this analysis. They cover every topic area that's required by SB 1000. So for example, we are measuring pollution burden through common virus screen data on traffic density, lead exposure to lead, as well as exposure to hazardous substances at cleanup sites like brownfield sites. In order to understand disparities in access to safe and affordable homes, we included indicators in code enforcement, complaints, cost burden, and evictions. And then based on a recommendation from our deeply rooted partners and in recognition that the history of racism and planning decisions still impact and shape the city today, we included an indicator on redlining, the redlining scores. And so here you have this is a potential, a preliminary map of potential environmental justice communities, which is a result of measuring all those indicators across those topic areas. The most impacted communities are shown in the darkest blue, and then the areas that have the hashed lines are the top 25 highest scoring census tracts. Now these are potential environmental justice communities, and we know that an important next step is really to ground truth this data in the map with communities and have conversations with communities to help us identify areas that are missing, and then also to help us identify the topics that are most important to measure, so the issues that are most important to measure. And that is and the map will be updated based on those conversations, including the conversation that we had with you today and the feedback we received. I'm going to turn it over to Lakshmi.
Thank you, Diana. So we will also be publishing an interactive map of the potential EJ communities that I think will be released sometime next week. So once that is out, there will be an accompanying survey, and people can click on it, and I can get more data, because this map is still static and it's you can't edit it or provide more feedback on it. So once that is out, we will let you know when that is out, and you can provide feedback on that map. So finally, as I mentioned, phase 1 also includes an update to the housing element. And the housing element is one of the topic areas that the general plan looks at, and it has to meet specific state deadlines. So the state of California required every city to update and adopt their housing element by early 2023. So we have published the first draft of the housing element, and it will be available for public review, but the first round of public comment period ends on June 13th, so that staff can incorporate and update the housing element to be sent to the state HCD for their review and comment. But the housing element will still be available for public comment, and we will be doing engagement around the housing element. The second draft will be available sometime in late October or early November of this year, once we get comments back from the state HCD and the Housing and Community Development Department, and we will incorporate those comments and release another draft. So there are several opportunities to engage and provide your feedback. So there is a pop-up happening on June 6th. There is also a housing element specific workshop happening on June 9th. And we continue to update, add more events, and the website should have all the information about the upcoming events. In addition, we are also going to present to the Planning Commission on June 1st on the housing element. So as part of the discussion today, we will...
Where can they go? Like, can you name the website for people to go, for those who can't see that?
Sure. So the website is, do you want me to see the link?
Yeah.
www.oaklandca.gov /topics/general -plan-update, and there should also be a bit.ly code that we can share with you, a shortened link. So we will now move into the discussion portion of this meeting, and we are looking for your feedback. So there's going to be a mapping exercise that Alison will go over, and we are looking to get your feedback and input on that.
Thanks so much for being here, everyone. So we do have 2 activities at these smaller tables this evening. For the first activity, we want to hear about your timeline, your history in West Oakland. When did your family move here? What are some of your best memories of going out to eat or going shopping at some of your favorite places? And then because the general plan is a forward-thinking plan, what types of memories do you want to make in the next 20 years? What will define West Oakland? What do you want to see happen? And then after that, we have an interactive mapping exercise. We have big aerial maps of West Oakland here. Shown on those maps is industrial lands in purple, because we do want to talk to you all about what it's like to live next to the port, or what impacts you might be seeing. And then your facilitator is going to ask a series of questions about what types of things you're experiencing related to environmental justice, or safety, or housing. And then we also want to hear from you tonight about what solutions you want to see in the general plan to address what some of those issues are. We have a bunch of different colored stickers, and we're going to have a note taker capturing everything this evening, and we're really looking forward to what you have to say. So thank you so much.
So if you're not seeing on the table with the map, you should be still seeing with the map. So for us here, the table, for those of you that
So Phil Tran, who commented, if you could email District 3 at oaklandca.gov, and we can send you the link to the website and hopefully the presentation. So I'm going to show a little bit about the exercise for those who are watching. And so you guys can kind of see, this is the map that is being shown. And then the purple areas right here are what's the purple area?
Industrial zone.
The industrial area that they were talking about.
Yeah.
You can use this bit.ly link. This should take you directly to the website.
Okay. Show a picture of the website right here. bit.ly.oakland GPU. I'm not showing faces, so just to let you know. Okay.
Good evening, everybody. I feel like I need to translate what you just saw. There was a little detail. There was a little detail.
A little dense, but it's
a little dense. The big picture, we're talking about housing, safety, and environmental justice. That's what we're talking about between now and the spring of 2023.
okay.
So when you're talking about housing, we have to, we have to plan where new housing is going to go and how we improve the quality of housing for people that are already here. For safety, we're talking about natural and man-made disasters, sea level rise, earthquakes, everything else that comes along with it. How do we proactively plan as a city, knowing where the risks are for those various safety risks? And environmental justice is, as described, it's a lot of it. These are the issues that have not been adequately addressed in planning traditionally, and thanks to the state, now we have to actively include that in our general plan. So because we're updating these two other elements, we're also including our very first environmental justice element in the city. So very exciting. Yeah. So that's where we're at, and then in phase 2 we'll do land use, transportation, open space, noise, and everything was mentioned. But anyway, it covers pretty much all the building blocks of what makes it a good place, or something that could be better than it is now. So it's super important that we get all this right. And with this map, it's a fantastic map. It's wonderful. Where's the guide? And here's the guide.
So what we are looking, yeah, sure. So what we are looking for is we can start. I mentioned the timeline. Like when did you or your family move here? How long have you lived here? What are your favorite memories when you're growing up? How have you seen the city or your community change what of those do you want to change for the general plan, what do you want to remain. So we can start with that, and then we can start focusing on the key areas that Ed mentioned, like housing, environmental justice issues, like the areas in purple are all industrial areas. So do we still want to have housing next to industrial areas? What kind of changes do we want to see? What kind of solutions do we want to see coming out of this process?
Well, we're living in a planning disaster right now. We have two Oaklands. The north side is pristine and lovely and working, and many parts of West and East Oakland are a disaster. We're just living in a spiral down the hill. I was born in an Oakland hospital, which is now an office building. And my parents brought me home to 1027 Magnolia. And shortly after that, they bought a house, which is still our family home in Brockers Street. And
On what street? I'm sorry.
1027 Magnolia.
No, but no, that's
Brockhurst.
Brockhurst.
And growing up, I mean, you look at the community, you think of a library, you think of goods and services that are readily available. We had churches, and the people in the community were able to avail themselves of the goods and services that no longer exist. And what really destroyed it, I mean, it was a restricted area, and the people that lived in the area came and settled between World War I and World War II. There were jobs that were readily available. A lot of the men were connected with the railroads and naval supply, army base, whatever, but people had jobs. Women were frequently domestics in Piedmont or whatever. And they were property owners. And that was something that happened. But then in the late 50s, all of this was, wherever you see this, these were houses and communities, and it was all destroyed. From the bay to San Diego. All that.
Sorry to stop you there. Like, are there particular intersections that have been most,
Everything needs to it talks about how we have designated spots in the city, and it's kind of more of a place to wear out old people and poor what happened prior to what has happened now, because there's clear insurgents in the neighborhood.